So, I've never really told anyone this story before. Not fully, anyway. It happened about 3 years ago when I was living in Phoenix, Arizona. I had this small apartment near downtown, nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom place that I shared with my roommate Marcus. Marcus was this cool guy I met at work. We got along great, you know? He was into video games like me, and we'd stay up late playing Call of Duty most nights. The apartment was perfect for us. My room was at the end of the hall, and his was right next to the living room. Everything was normal until his sister Delilah moved in. Marcus told me she lost her job at some restaurant and needed a place to crash for a few weeks. I said sure, no problem. I mean, she could sleep on the couch, right? Delilah was this quiet girl, maybe 24 or 25. She had long black hair and always wore these loose clothes that made her look smaller than she was. The first week was fine. She kept to herself mostly. She'd make breakfast sometimes, which was nice because I usually just ate cereal. She'd watch TV in the living room while Marcus and I played games in his room. Normal stuff. But then I started noticing things. Like, she'd walk around at night. A lot. I'd hear these soft footsteps in the hallway outside my room, usually around midnight or later. At first, I thought maybe she was just going to the bathroom or getting water. You know how it is when you're not used to someone new in the house. My room was at the very end of the hall, so anyone walking past had to be going somewhere specific. The bathroom was between my room and Marcus's room, so if she was walking past my door, she was either going to the bathroom or I don't know where else she'd be going. One night, I heard the footsteps again. They stopped right outside my door. I waited for the bathroom door to open, but it never did. The footsteps just stopped. I got up and looked through the peephole we had on my door. Yeah, I had a peephole on my bedroom door because the previous tenant was paranoid about something. Anyway, I looked through it, but the hallway was empty. This happened like 3 more times that week. Always around the same time. Always stopping outside my door. I mentioned it to Marcus, but he just shrugged and said Delilah probably had trouble sleeping. He said she'd always been a night owl, even when they were kids. Made sense, I guess. But then things got weirder. I started waking up with this strange feeling. You know when you wake up and something feels different? Like someone moved your stuff around while you were sleeping. That's exactly what it felt like. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid. But then I started noticing actual things. My phone would be on the other side of my nightstand from where I left it. My closet door would be open just a crack when I always closed it completely before bed. Little things like that. I remember one morning, I woke up and my desk chair was turned toward my bed. I always pushed it under the desk before sleeping. It's just a habit I had since I was a kid. But there it was, facing my bed like someone had been sitting there. I asked Marcus if he'd been in my room for any reason, maybe looking for something he lent me or whatever. He said no, and he looked confused when I asked. "Why would I be in your room, dude?" he said. "That's weird." He was right. It was weird. The next few nights, I started paying more attention. I'd place things in specific spots before bed, like my water bottle at the exact corner of my nightstand, just to see if anything moved. And shit, things kept moving. But the footsteps continued too. Every night, around 2 in the morning, I'd hear them. Soft steps in the hallway, stopping outside my door. Sometimes they'd stay there for what felt like forever before moving on. I thought about getting up and checking, But honestly, I was getting scared. Something about the whole situation felt wrong. Then one night I woke up suddenly. It was probably around 2:30, and I had this intense feeling that someone was in my room. Not just the usual someone moved my stuff feeling, like someone was actually there right then. I didn't move. I just lay there with my eyes closed, listening. The room was completely silent, but I swear I could feel someone standing near my bed. It sounds crazy, but you know how you can sometimes sense when someone's watching you? That's exactly what this felt like. I stayed still for maybe 20 minutes before the feeling went away. When I finally opened my eyes, everything looked normal. But my heart was beating so fast I thought I might have a heart attack. The next morning, I found a hair on my pillow. A long, black hair. I don't have long hair, and Marcus definitely doesn't. It had to be Delilah's. That's when I decided to set up my laptop to record while I slept. I positioned it on my dresser, angled toward my bed. I made sure it had enough battery to last all night and started recording before I went to sleep. I felt stupid doing it, but I had to know what was happening. The next morning, I checked the footage. Most of it was just me sleeping, which was boring as hell to watch. But then, around 2:15 a.m., my door slowly opened. Delilah stepped into my room. She moved so quietly, so carefully. She wasn't stumbling around like someone who was sleepwalking. Her movements were deliberate, calculated. She walked straight to my bed and just stood there. For almost an hour, she stood next to my bed, staring at me. Sometimes she'd lean closer, like she was studying my face. At one point, she reached out and touched my hair, running her fingers through it so gently I didn't even feel it. But the worst part was when she started whispering. I couldn't make out what she was saying in the recording, but her lips were moving the entire time. She was having a whole conversation with my sleeping body. When she finally left, she moved just as quietly as she'd entered. The door closed without a sound. I sat there watching this footage, and I felt sick. This wasn't sleepwalking. This was deliberate. This was fucking creepy. I confronted her that morning. She was making breakfast like nothing had happened, humming some song while she flipped pancakes. "Delilah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to ask you something." She turned around with this bright smile. "What's up? Have you been in my room at night?" Her smile faltered for just a second. "What do you mean?" "I have footage of you standing next to my bed for an hour last night." The color drained from her face. Then she laughed nervously. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I've been sleepwalking lately. Stress from losing my job, you know? I had no idea I was doing that." But I'd seen the footage. The way she moved, the way she touched my hair, the whispering. That wasn't sleepwalking. "Delilah, you weren't sleepwalking. You were awake." She got defensive then. "I would never do that intentionally. That's disgusting. I'm not some creep." I wanted to believe her, but something in her eyes told me she was lying. That afternoon, while she was out job hunting, I did something I'm not proud of. I went into her room and looked around. I wasn't trying to be invasive, but I had to know if there was more to this. I found a journal hidden under her mattress. The entries were all about me. Pages and pages of detailed observations about my sleeping habits. What time I went to bed, what I wore to sleep, how I positioned myself. She'd written things like, "He looks so peaceful when he sleeps, and I want to take care of him forever." But the most disturbing entry was from the night before. I touched his hair again tonight. He's so beautiful when he's vulnerable. I think about what it would be like if it was just us two. Forever. I put the journal back exactly where I found it and got the hell out of her room. That night, I told Marcus everything. I showed him the footage and told him about the journal. He was shocked. He said he'd never seen his sister act like this before. "I'll talk to her," he said. "This is fucked up." But when he talked to her, she denied everything. She said I was making it up because I didn't want her living there. She even cried and said she felt betrayed that we didn't trust her. Marcus was torn. This was his sister, but he'd seen the footage with his own eyes. The next few nights, I barely slept. I kept my door locked and pushed my dresser in front of it. I know it sounds extreme, but I was genuinely scared. She never came into my room again, but I could still hear her footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes they'd stop outside my door for a long time, and I'd imagine her standing there, listening to me breathe. 2 weeks later, she moved out. She said she'd found a job in Denver and was moving there with some friends. Marcus seemed relieved, and honestly, so was I. But before she left, she came to my room to say goodbye. She knocked on my door, and when I opened it, she had this strange smile on her face. "I just wanted to thank you for letting me stay here," she said. I know it wasn't easy having someone new in the house. "No problem," I said, wanting the conversation to end. "I hope you sleep well from now on," she said, and there was something in her voice that made my skin crawl. That was 3 years ago. I still live in the same apartment, but I've never slept the same way since. I always check my door before bed, and I still position things on my nightstand to see if they move. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I think about her standing there watching me sleep. I wonder what she was whispering about. I wonder what she was thinking during those long hours she spent staring at me. I never found out what happened to her in Denver. Marcus doesn't talk about her much anymore. But sometimes, when I'm having trouble sleeping, I think about that journal and wonder if she found someone else to watch. I really hope she didn't.